Before we begin, subscribe. Thank you. Now let's go. I worked at a department store, and a man asked to use our employee bathroom. I said the public one was 2 minutes away in the food court. He said he couldn't make it. I said, sorry, it's policy. He stared at me for 5 seconds and said, you're going to regret this, then walked toward the back of the store. 5 minutes later, a customer ran up to me and said, there's a situation in aisle 12. I walked over. This man had pulled down his pants and taken a full intentional shit in the middle of the aisle. Between the towels and bedding, not an accident, a deliberate protest shit. He was gone. The smell hit me like a wall. Customers were gagging and running out of the store. My manager called the police. We had to close the entire section. Hazmat crew came. Cost the store thousands. We found him on security footage. He looked directly at the camera, smiled, squatted, and did his business. Police arrested him 2 days later. He told them I deserved it for not letting him use the bathroom. The judge disagreed. I worked at a toy store the week before Christmas, and 2 dads got into a full fist fight over the last action figure. Both grabbed the box at the same time. Neither would let go. One said, I got here first. The other said, I touched it first. Then shoving, then punches. A full brawl broke out in the toy aisle. They knocked over shelves. Action figures flying everywhere. Kids screaming and crying. Parents pulling their children away. One dad grabbed a toy baseball bat and swung it. The other grabbed a toy lightsaber. They were beating each other with children's toys while their own kids watched. Both ended up bloody. Noses bleeding, lips split, black eyes. Cops showed up and arrested both of them. Their kids watched their dads get put in handcuffs. The action figure was crushed and destroyed during the fight. Neither got it. We threw it away. It cost $15. I worked at an electronics store, and a woman tried to return a TV she bought 3 years ago. She said she just stopped liking it. I said our return policy is 30 days. She said she has the receipt. I said it's been 3 years. She demanded a manager. Manager said the same thing. She started screaming that we were stealing from her. Full volume screaming. Everyone in the store stopped and stared. She grabbed a display tablet off the shelf and hurled it at the wall. It shattered into pieces. She said, now you have to give me a refund. My manager said, now I'm calling the police. She tried to leave. Manager blocked the door. She tried to push past him. He didn't move. Cops showed up. She immediately started crying and said we attacked her. They watched the security footage of her throwing the tablet, arrested her for destruction of property. She screamed the whole way out. Came back 2 weeks later wearing sunglasses like we wouldn't recognize her. We did. I worked at a craft store and a man wanted a specific shade of blue yarn. We had 12 different blues. None were right. I checked the back. Nothing else. I told him. He said I was lying. I said I wasn't. He said prove it. I said I can't let customers in the back. He grabbed an entire shelf of yarn and flipped it over. Hundreds of balls of yarn exploded everywhere. He screamed, if I can't have my blue, no one gets any yarn. He started throwing yarn down the aisle, ripping packages open. Customers were backing away. Kids were crying. I called security. He saw me on the phone and started running. Security tackled him in the parking lot. He was banned from all locations. Later emailed corporate saying I was rude. Corporate sent him a cease and desist after watching the footage. I worked at a pet store and a woman wanted to return a dead fish. We need a water sample to test what killed it. She didn't have one. I said I can't process the return without it. She opened the bag and dumped the dead fish directly on the counter. Said, there, now give me my refund. I said I still need the water sample. She said, test this, and spit on the counter, at me. I called my manager. He told her to leave. She said, I want my $3 back. He said, leave or I'm calling cops. She said, over a fish. He said, over assault. She grabbed the dead fish and threw it at him, hit him in the chest and slid down his shirt. He called cops immediately. She ran. They found her in the parking lot. arrested over a $3 fish. I worked at a home improvement store and a woman screamed at me for 45 minutes because we were out of a specific light bulb. Not a special bulb, a regular 60-watt bulb. We had other brands. She wanted that one. I said we're out. She said check the back. I checked. Nothing. She said I didn't really check. I said I did. She demanded a manager. Manager said the same thing. She started screaming. This is false advertising. You have an empty shelf. That's illegal. Everyone was staring. She pulled out her phone and started filming herself yelling at us. Said she was going to put us on blast. Kept screaming about her rights as a consumer. Demanded we call the CEO. My manager said, "Ma'am, it's a light bulb." She said, "It's the principle." She screamed for 45 minutes. Not exaggerating. Other customers left because of her. Finally, she called the cops herself, on us, for being out of light bulbs. The cops showed up. She told them we were running a scam. The cop looked at the empty shelf and said, "They're just out of stock." She demanded he arrest us. He said, "That's not a crime." She tried to file a report. He refused. She left screaming that she'd be back with a lawyer. I worked at a clothing store and a woman tried to use a coupon from a completely different store. I said this is for Target. We're not Target. She said, "So?" I said, "We can't accept Target coupons." She said, "A coupon is a coupon." I said, "Not how it works." She demanded a manager. Manager said the same thing. She started screaming that we were discriminating against her. Full meltdown in the middle of the store. She said, "This is America. I can use any coupon anywhere." My manager said, "That's not how America works." She threw the coupon at him, then threw her shopping basket. Clothes went flying. She started grabbing items off shelves and throwing them on the floor. Security came. She told them we assaulted her. They watched her throw things for another 2 minutes before escorting her out. She was screaming about her constitutional rights the entire time. I worked at a grocery store and a man tried to pay with obviously fake money. It looked like it was printed on regular paper. Wrong colours, wrong texture. Said movie prop in tiny letters. I said, "Sir, this isn't real money." He said, "Yes it is." I said, "It literally says movie prop." He squinted at it and said, "That's for security purposes." I said, "No, it means it's fake." He started screaming that I was accusing him of being a criminal. Full volume. Everyone in line turned to look. He said, "I got this from the bank." I said, "No bank gave you this." He demanded a manager. Manager looked at it and called cops immediately. The guy panicked and tried to run. Manager blocked him. Guy started pushing. Manager didn't budge. Cops showed up and searched his bag. 6 more fake bills, all movie props. He cried and said he was just trying to buy groceries. Cops said, with fake money. He had $30 real in his wallet the whole time. I worked at a sporting goods store and watched a woman steal shoes in the most insane way possible. She tried on running shoes, then just sprinted out of the store wearing them. Tags still on, full speed. I yelled after her. She didn't stop. I chased her into the parking lot. She was way faster than me. Got in her car and drove off. I got the license plate. Cops tracked her down. She said she was testing them out and was going to come back and pay if she liked them. Cops said, "That's called stealing." She was arrested for shoplifting. The shoes cost $60. She had $200 cash in her purse. I worked at a bookstore and a woman had a complete breakdown over an expired coupon. It expired 6 months ago. System rejected it. She said, "So?" I said, "It's October. This expired in April." She said, "It's still a coupon." I said, "Expiration dates exist for a reason." She demanded a manager. Manager said the same thing. She started crying, real tears. Said we were treating her terribly. Said she was a loyal customer. Said she'd been saving this coupon for something special. Manager pointed at the expiration date. Giant letters. Not fine print. She said, I don't read fine print. Manager said, it's not fine print. It's right there. She ripped the coupon into pieces and threw them at my manager's face. Stormed out. Came back 10 minutes later and asked if we could tape it back together. We said no. She started screaming again that we were the worst store she'd ever been to. Left again. Came back an hour later and tried to use a different expired coupon. I worked at a department store and a woman called the police because a mannequin was wearing the outfit she wanted to buy. We didn't have her size in stock, only the one on the mannequin. She demanded we undress it and give her the clothes. I said, we can't do that, the display stays up. She said, I want those specific clothes. I said, they're the same as what's on the rack. We're just out of your size. She said, no, I want the ones on the mannequin. They look better. I said, they're identical. She demanded a manager. Manager said no. She pulled out her phone and called 911. Told them she was being discriminated against. Dispatcher asked what the emergency was. She said, they won't sell me the clothes I want. Dispatcher said, that's not an emergency. She said, yes it is. Dispatcher hung up on her. She called back. They told her she'd be fined for misusing emergency services. She started screaming that the police were in on it too. I worked at a shoe store and a customer wore shoes for a week and tried to return them. Full on dirty, scuffed, black soles. She said she just tried them on. I said, these are filthy. She said, no they're not. I flipped them over. The soles were caked with dirt. She said, that's from my house. I said, your house has mud? She said, are you calling me dirty? I said, I'm saying these shoes are... She demanded a refund. I said no. She called her mum. Her mum came in and immediately started yelling at me, then looked at the shoes. Stopped yelling, turned to her daughter and said, did you wear these to school? Daughter said, maybe for one day. Mum said, one day? Daughter said, maybe a week. They started screaming at each other in the middle of the store. Mum apologized to me and dragged her daughter out. Daughter was yelling that it wasn't fair. Mum yelled back, life isn't fair. I worked at a pharmacy and a woman screamed at me because insurance wouldn't cover her medication. I explained it needed prior authorization. She said, just give it to me. I said, it's $400 without insurance. She said, that's robbery. I said, I don't set the prices. She said, you're all in on it. Big pharma. I said, I make $15 an hour. She said, that's what they want you to think. She screamed at me for 20 minutes straight. Demanded the pharmacist. Pharmacist said the same thing. She said, I could die without this medication. Pharmacist said, it's for seasonal allergies. She pulled out her phone and pretended to call a news station. Yes, I'm at a pharmacy that's letting people die. Stood there fake reporting us for 10 minutes while customers walked around her. Then just left. Never came back for the medication. I worked at a convenience store and a drunk guy threw chips at me because I wouldn't sell him beer without valid ID. He showed me a photo on his phone. I said I need the physical card. He left. Came back with an expired ID. I said I can't accept expired. He said it's only 2 months expired. I said still expired. He started screaming that I was on a power trip, that I was ruining his night, that he'd get me fired. He grabbed a bag of chips and threw it at my head. Missed, stormed out, came back the next night with valid ID and acted like nothing happened. Said, see, was that so hard? Alright, make sure you're subscribed for more chaos, and I'll see you in the next one.